Now, guys, I'm delighted to say that we are joined by presenter, broadcaster, comedian, author, and golfer. Jeez, he's got all the acronyms, all the titles. Dermot Whelan. Dermot, how are you doing?
Hey guys, how are you? Hey Johnny, how Dave? How are things?
Great, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. How was your weekend? You were telling us before we started recording that you were playing this weekend.
I did. I got out. I had a hiatus over the autumn there. I went golfing with my brothers in Spain in September, and unfortunately, I didn't get to play since then, so I had to take a bit of a break. So I got out last week, and I got out over the weekend as well. So I'm delighted to say that I shot 20 points in a 9-hole competition, and I got cut 0.3.
Very good. Congratulations. That's great. That's great.
Thanks, guys, because no one else in my life cares.
You're amongst friends.
So where does that put you now, handicap-wise? Where are we?
I went from 11.7 to 11.4. So that's a very, that's a powerful move because I've gone from 12 to 11 essentially. So
yeah, full shot.
And I was getting slagged by my regular playing partners for going out to 12 at all. So I'm desperately clawing my way back. My lowest handicap ever was 9. So I'm determined to get back to that. At single figures would be great. Yesterday was a step in the right direction. End of the year on a high note.
Absolutely, yeah.
You've hit the lockdown male 30s to 40s trifecta by having mindfulness, podcasts, and golf now in your life. So this is a huge moment that we can get you on to talk about this.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, you got me in a good week. I'm flying high on an 11.4.
Did you win cash? Did you win the money?
I won a voucher, for the pro shop.
Very good.
Which I've yet to collect. I was hoping for a gala dinner, but I think it'll just be in an envelope by the bar.
Well, we can do this now. This can be your award ceremony. So congratulations on behalf of the Bogey men. And was it at Howth Golf Club you were playing?
I'm looking for it. I'm looking around for a golf trophy I could hold up, but unfortunately there's none here.
So were you playing Howth, was it?
Yeah, Howth Golf Club, yeah. Great for goats, as they say. It's very hilly, but the views are spectacular. I don't know if there's a course in Dublin with better views than Howth Golf Club. So if you can stand the fog and the wind and the steep inclines, it's the place to be seen, guys.
Very good. How long have you been with Howth?
About 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I kind of just jumped around the place. I'm a member of Lahinch as well, but that's more of a summer thing for me, and it's more of a tradition. That was the first place I learned to play golf, was Lahinch, when I was a kid on my summer holidays. So just kept up the membership down there, and as you know, as a course, it's pretty spectacular. It's such a beast of a course. In fact, behind me, I don't know if you can see that. Obviously, apologies to anyone just listening to audio, but behind me on the wall, I have a picture of my favorite golf hole in the world, and that is the approach shot to the 6th green in Lahinch Old Course with the sea in the background. And that's, on a windy day, that's one of the toughest approach shots you're ever going to play.
It's a fantastic shot and a fantastic hole. How did you get into golf? You mentioned you were a kid when you learned to play at Lahinch. Who was it that got you into golf first?
My dad was just lived for golf. That's all he wanted to do, was play golf. And of course, as maybe some of your listeners would remember, if their parents were into golf, I was dragged out to caddy quite a lot, which, as we all know, is the worst job in the universe, where you're dragged out of bed to go to a golf course that you can't even play on. You're just walking around. I remember just because he'd play all over the place, and you'd be trudging, down a wet fairway in Shannon, dragging this cart behind you, and only thing keeping you going was the thought of a pint of my waddy and a Twix at some point in the future. And you had to feign interest. What you think? Oh, that was a great shot, Dermot, don't you think? It's like, yeah, that's fantastic. I'm freezing. But and he loved playing like ridiculously early tee times as well. So when you're 14 and 15, getting up at 7 a.m. to drive to Tipperary to play golf, not something you were dreaming of under the duvet. But yeah, he loved golf. He wanted us all to play golf because he liked having a 4-ball of sons, you know. So I have 3 brothers. One of them is in Australia, so he was immediately off the list. So then it was down to 3 of us. So that's how we started to play in Lahinch on my summer holidays. The classic pencil bag with the 2 clubs. And what's great about Lahinch is they have the old course, of course, which is lovely, but they also have the castle course across the way. And that was a bit more relaxed. You know, there are lots of junior stuff going on over there. And, you know, if you hacked the lump out of the fairway, nobody was really going to give out to you. So it was actually a really lovely way to learn without necessarily any big lessons or formal structure. Just me and a couple of friends going out trying to whack the ball around the place. And that's, I think, I remember the first time I hit a 3-wood off the fairway and it went up in the air. And I was like absolutely amazed. Like, I did it. I hit the ball and it didn't just scutter along the grass. And from that moment on, I've been trying to recreate that shot. But you know yourselves, you have these little memories of playing golf as a kid, and that's one that stuck in my head. And that's the whole thing about golf. It's so just you're constantly trying to recapture feelings, you know, with golf. That sweet drive, that, you know, whenever you hit it straight out of the middle of the face of the club, you're constantly trying to get that feeling again. And you know, so I guess for me at age, whatever that was, 8 or 9, getting the ball off the ground for the first time is a memory that sticks with me.
And did you get a bit of, so that was the summer, did you have a winter course like closer to home, or was that just, it was just a holiday thing?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Limerick, which is about an hour from Lahinch, where I grew up. And I grew up right beside Limerick Golf Club in Ballyclough, which I suppose there's nothing special about it other than that JP McManus, the famous horse trainer, gambler, and all-round philanthropist that everybody west of the Shannon knows and loves, he was quite involved with the club. So him being JP, he started to bring over very famous golfers just to play golf there, and, you know, in a fairly random golf club, nothing special, as I said. So I remember Tiger Woods playing there. His Pro-Am is very famous now, but in the early days, it was a really small event. There were just, you know, a handful of people there. But JP used to bring in the big names over the cattle grid and into Limerick Golf Club, and it was just crazy. So I suppose I was always, you know, I grew up around the golf course. I had a job as a teenager cleaning the locker rooms and the toilets and everything. We just used to hang around on the course and in the clubhouse and get kicked out of the lounge for playing snooker, because you weren't meant to play on the snooker table until you were 18. You know, so I suppose I have a lot of, you know, all my memories of hanging around as a teenager were generally something to do with the golf club. In fact, I remember it snowed in the would have been maybe late 80s, early 90s, and there was like a big blanket of snow. So we decided we would build an igloo on the second fairway. But we wanted it to be structurally sound. So we used branches of trees and everything as a kind of a scaffold. And then we packed the snow around it. Like, this thing was, you know, was worthy of the ancient Romans in staying power, because when the snow melted, the igloo didn't. And it stayed there as this compacted lump in the middle of the fairway. And of course, you know, the what would have been emails, phone calls went around as to who the hell built this bloody thing on the fairway. It was wrecking the grass, and you couldn't move it out of the way. And we were constantly quizzed every time we went up to the golf course to, you know, did you do it, lads? Did you do it? We denied it, but then there was one barman who absolutely knew it was us. And every time we walked into the bar, for years after, he'd go, "They're the boys who built the igloo." If he ever saw us like across the car park or anything, he'd be like, "Igloo, igloo, lads, igloo, igloo." He knew it was us.
He's definitely impressed by that.
Clearly, yeah.
Architectural feat. That's impressive.
It was, yeah. But the worst thing, we built it just in the landing zone of where the drives would land. So it was the most annoying possible place to build an igloo. So yeah, I have fond memories of playing golf or looking for golf balls was the other one. If you were short of a few quid, you'd get into the hedges and bushes and try and find a few golf balls and sell them back to the pro, and hopefully you'd get enough money for a pint of my waddy and a Twix, as was the currency of the day.
It was like collective rearing of children, I think, back then. I think it was fathers had no idea how to be dad or what being a dad was, other than dragging them along to wherever they went it. And because what you're saying is the exact same as every other fella who's into golf from a young age, is like putting competitions for golf balls if you lost all of your golf balls out in the golf course. That's just what happened. And it's funny because you kind of learn manners in the golf club almost.
Yeah, that's a great point, David. Absolutely. Certainly, first of all, in terms of the parenting, like back then, if your dad did something with you, not all dads, but certainly for us, it was always on his terms. So, it was, if you wanted to hang out with your dad, you did what they did, like just what you said. So caddying was a way to spend time with your father, even though it was just kind of slave labor, really. But and then you were kind of just the sense of freedom, particularly growing up in the country. You could head off in the morning with your clubs, and you wouldn't be expected back till you got hungry. So the golf club was, but we didn't have a GA club particularly near to us, so the golf club kind of was that sort of center of activity.
And are you still playing with your brothers now? I know you went on a golf trip with a few of you a few months ago. Is that a regular thing?
It is. We traditionally have played in a tournament in Kenmare called the Three Brothers, which I'm sure you're familiar with. This thing, I think, it was certainly one of the first, or one of the most famous Three Brothers tournaments, in the world. People have flown in from all over the country, all over the world to play in it. There was a some golf professional connection to it, which now I can't remember. There was a American pro that came with his family. I'll have to dig that piece of info up again. But yeah, so we play in that every year, and it's just mad, like it's obviously the only criteria is that you have to be three brothers to play in it, but you don't play together as a team. You're split up. So you'll always play with two other brothers from different families, if you get me. But the weird thing is, in the evening time, you just see loads of people walking around the town that kind of look like each other. And because, brothers are an interesting group of people. It's not like going away with your mates. It's not like seeing a load of best friends walking around the town. Because they're brothers, they know each other intimately. They've probably punched the heads off each other a few times. See, it's some kind of weird dynamics, that maybe one brother doesn't really get on with the other one. So it's really fun as a sort of a social experiment just to watch all these sets of brothers. There was one family that has 12 brothers, so they entered 3 teams.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, so
did they win?
Imagine 12 golfing brothers.
That family better have cleaned up every time.
Yeah.
Statistically, they just had to.
Yeah, but it's hard. It's a hard tournament to. We've never won anything at it. But this year we took a break because I was, with COVID, it was a little bit tricky, and I wasn't sure if it was happening or whatever. So we decided to move our Three Brothers tournament ourselves to Spain. So we played a few courses in September, and we have our own separate Whelan Brothers trophy, which I have won 3 times out of the last 5. I gotta get in there. So yeah, that was fun. So it was nice to go to Spain and play in the heat and not rain, which was fantastic in September.
So would you be the most proficient golfer then out of the brothers?
I like to think so. However, I probably is my handicap is the lowest out of them, but we're all in and around the same, really. One of the brothers lives in Italy and the other lad's in Dublin. So we just, it's just great to play a few games with the brothers. And obviously the slagging and the niggling is just a joy,
That's one of the really nice things that I love about golf. I was saying this to Dave and I. We played Royal Dublin yesterday, and it was probably, although we talk more or less nearly every day at this point, this is the second time probably in the last 6 months that we've seen each other being together in person. And that's probably one of the lovely things about golf that you don't get with many or really any other sports, where you can not see each other for a long time, catch up for 4 hours, 5 hours, go for a meal or a pint afterwards, be as close as that again. For yourself and your brothers, obviously you're saying one lives over in Italy, to have that closeness and have you guys come together like that again, it must be that extra little bit special. And to be able to do that on a golf course is something unique to that activity that you have as brothers and you got from your dad.
Yeah, it is. It's very unique. And the golf, as you say, it's a unique sport because it's not so intense that you're purely focused on it and you can't have a chat or share a joke. But you have enough of a focus that you're not just sitting looking at each other, that you can catch up gradually over 4 or 5 hours. And at the end of it, everyone knows what everyone's been up to. And, but like that, you haven't just been sort of sitting trying to drag conversation out of each other, because you have enough of focus. And there's always, the competitive side of it, which is great. It's great. Feels great beating your brothers. There's no, just beating your brother is different to your friend. There's something deeper, and you
can kind of get to them, like, you really can like throw a nasty one at them as well. It's like...
yeah. But yeah, I mean, if we didn't have that in the calendar, my brother wouldn't be coming back specifically for it, but he loves it. Morris, my brother in Italy, he loves that it's just in the calendar. So it's booked. So, we can just come back. But it's funny when you do go golfing with your mates, or indeed your brothers. My wife is always kind of amazed that I never seem to know the answers to the questions that she would ask. It's like, oh, you were playing with so-and-so. How are their children? Don't know. In fact, I remember it was so bad. I remember playing with a friend of mine, Alan. At the end of the round, I said, "Oh, come here. What's the story with your kids? How many do you have? How are they? Well?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, fine. How about you?" "Yeah, 3. They're great. Because our wives will ask us when we get back." Because you just don't talk about your kids really when you're a bloke. Certainly not to the same. You just revert back to, when you were in school with these guys, and that's what's so great.
This is really weird, because I just played with a friend of mine and another friend like that. They just had a baby and got home, and my other half said, "Oh, what did they call the newborn?" I was like, no idea.
And then they're like, "What do you talk about?"
Yeah, what do you know? It's like golf. Like, by playing golf. It's like, yeah, golf. That's all we talked about. That's all we do. It's the only thing we have in common. Oh god.
Yeah.
Jeez, Dave, you're a terrible friend.
Oh, I know. I'm on a bad run of it, like, because she actually came home the other night, and I don't know, were you watching the Charlie Woods I don't know, appreciation night on Sky Sports Golf, and she was like, "You will watch anything golf related on TV." It's like, it's a tournament. She's like, but for the duration of the conversation, all that was on it was a 12-year-old boy playing golf, and she's like, "You're beyond help. Like, you're just a loser." Oh, but,
do you watch much golf yourself, Dermot?
Yeah, I do. I kind of mix it up between Sky Golf and Sky Formula One channel. I kind of hover in between those two. That's my happy place.
Two very similar paced sports. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're similar in that it seems to take ages, and for a long periods of time, there's nothing happening. That's kind of it. But yeah, I didn't quite watch the father and son tournament. I was kind of following it on social media, and obviously looking at the pictures of the Daly's, John Daly's trousers and the belts. They were something else. But yeah, I mean, I generally watch, if there's something on the PGA, I'll generally watch it over the weekend.
So you've played in a couple of Irish Open pro-ams. First one was it Lahinch, was it?
First one was Lahinch, yeah, in 2019, which was phenomenal. And then there was none in 2020. But in fact, I have...
This is great. You've got props on cue. You're the most prepared guest we've had.
A collector's item. This is the this is the Dermot Whelan 2020 Pro-Am celebratory sequined cushion.
Wow.
Sorry, your own Pro-Am?
No, well, this was to celebrate the fact that I'd been accepted in and confirmed for the Irish Pro-Am. And the European Tour sent me my own sequined cushion. Clearly, they had a lot of budget to play around with that year.
That's out there.
An email would have done. But hey, but the fact, it's like the Adair Manor Ryder Cup T-shirts, that became defunct. This is a collector's item, so expect to see it on eBay shortly.
Yeah, from the Pro-Am that never was.
Yeah.
So playing in the first Pro-Am Lahinch, that must have been extra special because obviously, who are you playing with? Who are you showing around your home course?
I was playing with Trevor Immelman, of course, wow. 2008 Masters winner. So I also played with Ruby Walsh.
Very good.
Who is just a great guy, great crack.
He's nearly a professional golfer himself, the amount of Pro-Ams he plays.
He plays a lot, but I wouldn't call him a professional golfer now. He did have a fresh air on the second. So
lovely.
Oh, wow.
In front of the galleries, that's a tough one to forget. That'll haunt me for the rest of my life. And I also played with Brendan Lawler, who is amazing, just fantastic. I'm sure you know him well. Disability golfer, and has really been blazing a trail on, as a professional golfer now. In the disability world, he's picking up trophies left, right, and center. If you just follow his Instagram, every time I look at it, he's holding a trophy in the air. But he turned pro shortly after that Pro-Am, and he was just phenomenal. He's the condition he was born with means he's got shorter arms and shorter legs. Man, he hits the ball well over 300 yards, and in those Pro-Ams, everyone hits a drive, and usually you're hitting the pros. Everyone's hitting from where the pro landed. We were hitting it from where Brendan landed each time, So I think he's 7 birdies that round. Phenomenal golfer. So
he's
not surprised he turned pro. So it was a great day out. But my highlight was just, chatting to Trevor Immelman. And there were no microphones. It wasn't as if I was interviewing him. It was just my hands in my pockets, walking down the fairway, talking to him about, playing up the last to win the Masters and trying on the green jacket. And, that's a really special moment where you just have a one-on-one conversation with someone who has achieved something incredible, But it was funny. He's a funny guy. He's very low key, South African. And I was asking him, where's his head at in tournaments, and what's he hoping to achieve and that kind of stuff. And he was like, excuse the terrible attempt at a South African accent, but it's not going to stop me.
Neither will we.
Yeah. Okay. I can't. Young guys coming through are just too good, and I'm getting too old now to really compete. And I was like, oh, what age are you? 39. Dude, don't tell me that. I'll never play in a captain's prize again. But it was funny, mentally he wanted to make a move into punditry, and it was as if he'd sort of, I won the green jacket, had an amazing life of playing pro golf. I mean, still playing, but it's funny. And then you look at someone like Pádraig Harrington, who is like, I'm going to be swinging a club, or, when I'm 110, I'll be redesigning my swing. So he will never stop, seeing himself as a contender. So it's funny just experiencing the different headspaces that professionals can be in. And then, of course, you had Brendan, who was just about to start his journey as a professional golfer. So I think myself and Ruby might never turn pro at this stage.
Where do you sit? Okay, so where do you sit then in the golf, your golf nerdyism? Are you Porrick side of it, as in completely obsessed? Or are you Trevor Immelman side who's like, my best days are behind, but I'm just really enjoying life around golf?
Yeah. I don't think anyone except Porrick can have those levels of obsession in terms of tinkering. I mean, it's kind of pointless for someone at my level of golf to be really, getting down into the serious data in terms of, where my swing trajectories and, the nitty gritty. Like, I know for me, if I'm well rested, I'm in a good mood, I'm going to play better. Yeah. And all I need to do is get my ass up to the practice green, and do some chipping and some putting. And I know I could knock a few shots off my game if I just practice my short game a bit more. But, most of us amateur golfers focus on, I don't need more practice. I need a new driver for Christmas. That's what I need. The club I'm going to use the least. That's what I'm going to spend 500 quid on.
I can buy my way out of this slice.
Yes. Wallet golf. That's what it's called.
Don't tell me that. That's going to be my new investment.
Yeah. So no, I don't. I'm not fanatical about tinkering with my swing or anything like that. I did do one of the really interesting thing I did was there's a physio called Andy Watson. Works in Dublin. A Raglan Sports Clinic is his business. Certainly part of his business. But he teamed up with I'm going to forget his name now. He is used to be Shane Lowry's coach back in the day. He's a pro and he's based out of Bray Golf Club. I'll remember his name in a few minutes.
Dara Lernahan?
Dara Lernahan. That
was a question I had in the can for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, Dara and Andy teamed up and they do this sort of holistic approach to your swing, and obviously coming from a meditation background, the word holistic had my ears picked up and went, yes, so we can focus on the whole thing and not just individual parts. So the idea is that they cover you in little monitors. You swing the club, and Andy, first of all, does the physio part. So he checks all your range of motion right across your swing, right across your body. So if they pick up on some, limit on any of that, then he can start to adjust that with you. So, you could be hiking your ball to the left off the tee and you might think, it's my swing, I'm closing the club face or whatever it is. But actually, it could be actually range of motion that's your issue. So he works on the physical side of it. And then Dara has a look at your actual swing and how you are making contact with the ball. And I found that incredible. They gave me little adjustments to make. This sounds like a big ad for them, but this is kind of the only tinkering that I've done in the last couple of years. And I was hitting my irons an extra 30 or 40 yards, which for me is massive. I'm not exactly a long hitter, but it was just the angle that the club was coming in at changed everything. And, Andy was able to kind of free me up a little bit as well, which meant that a bigger range of motion. So that stuff I think is really useful for people, for your amateur golfers. Let's just check if there's anything physical getting in the way and stopping you from being the greatest golfer of all time. And then let's just tweak one or two things on your swing. And I found that was a bit of, was a lot of fun and actually very, very educational as to, learning how you actually hit the ball. But if you were a bloke, if you were anyone who's into golf and someone gave you a voucher for that for Christmas, you'd be happy out, wouldn't you? Rather than the world's greatest golfer mug, or if you want to get someone something decent for golf, then that's a good thing. I presume they're still doing it now. I'm not sure, but
they are.
I didn't mean it to be a big ad, but if you talk about tinkering, that's what my experience was.
I think the understanding of the how you swing is, for the average golfer, it's so invaluable, because so many people know, like, oh geez, I'm always slicing the ball. But like you're saying, that could be anything from a range of motion issue to the clubs being too long or too short. I always find that the understanding the how is almost as rewarding as getting the extra 30 yards. Now, when you're going out and playing with your mates, the extra 30 yards is definitely more rewarding in that environment. But the understanding, I find, is always just, it's it isn't viable.
Yeah, because I mean, most of the frustration of golf is walking around, trudging through the mud, asking yourself, what am I doing wrong? I mean, that's most of your time when you're in a bad mood on a golf course, or if you're in a bad mood, is like, what am I? You want someone to come down from heaven and, the angel Gabriel to appear and say, you're putting too much weight on your left foot. Like, you spend your whole, it's the frustration of not knowing, that's what drives people bonkers. And you ask the person, no, I think maybe you're swinging too fast. You're, shorten your backswing. Like, it's all these options you have in this menu and you don't know which is the right one. And sometimes you could be just hungover. That's your issue. Maybe if you weren't hungover, you'd be fine. But it's the not knowing is the worst.
You mentioned a little bit earlier on that you have a holistic background and a background in meditation. Before we get into whether you employ your meditation into golf or vice versa, or whether golf is actually can be seen as a form of meditation, can you talk to us a little bit about how you got into meditation in the first place? It was through a pretty traumatic experience, actually.
Yeah, back in 2007, I was doing a lot of stuff. I was doing stand-up comedy and TV and radio and early morning breakfast radio and late night comedy clubs, and had a lot going on. I had a small family. I was starting a family. This is really tiny family at home. I was starting a family, and I had no stress management system other than Guinness. So long story short, I had a panic attack on a way to perform at a comedy festival. And I suppose I had never had one before. And if anyone has ever had, any of your listeners have had a panic attack, it's not a pleasant experience. You can literally feel like you're dying. So I remember as I was put into the ambulance, they handed me a brown paper bag, and I thought I was dying. I was like, clear. I know the HSE is in trouble, but surely we have better equipment than a Centra bag. I'm dying over here. And he was like, it's fine. You're hyperventilating. This is all you need. So that was a kind of a wake-up call as to, as showbiz as my entrance into the comedy festival was in an ambulance with the flashing lights and loud sirens. It wasn't really a productive thing to be doing with my time. So it just made me kind of look at other areas of, and quite by chance, I met a woman who wanted me to launch her book. She's an author and wanted me to MC her book launch. Now she's a great pal called Siobhan McKenna. And I heard that in her spare time, she taught meditation to the guards. And I was like, maybe the guards, there's got to be something. They're a fairly stressed out bunch of people. So maybe there's something in this. So I started to look into it. We did a swap. I MC'd her book launch and she taught me meditation for a couple hours, and that kind of set me on the path. So over time, I looked into the science of it. I made a lot of sense to me, and then I practiced it for over 10 years. And then I became a teacher back in 2018. I trained with a chap in California. He's one of the leading corporate stress management experts over there. So that's what I do now. I teach it to companies and, employees particularly people who've been finding it hard since remote working kicked in and circumstances have changed. And I'm hoping I've been trying to put on some live shows in theaters, which is a mixture of stand-up and meditation, just to help people to learn a few easy techniques to manage stress and have a laugh while we're doing it. So that's my story up until this point.
Is golf in itself, does it act as meditation, or should you practice it while doing it? Because effectively golf is a mundane activity by which occupies a part of your brain to turn off another part, which from my understanding would be roughly the principles around meditation in terms of being able to calm yourself down. Should you use one while doing the other, or is golf enough in itself for people in their life to just chill out a bit more, given the inherent frustrations with golf, obviously?
Yeah. Okay, well, there's a bit to unpack there, and it's an excellent question. So let's talk about it, right? Firstly, let's look. First of all, is it something good to do? If you enjoy it, absolutely, keep doing it. Most of us love golf. You guys have a golf podcast. You obviously love it. So keep doing it. But let's just go back to, I suppose, what is the definition of meditation and what's the definition of mindfulness? Because I think mindfulness comes into golf a little bit more. So let's start with mindfulness. Mindfulness is, in very basic terms, anything that pulls you into the present moment. Okay. Present moment is the space where you're not thinking about the past and you're not worried about what's happening in the future. You're just in that present moment. So you could be washing the dishes and be experiencing the present moment. You could be washing them mindfully. You should be thinking about the suds and the water and the sound of the plates and sound of the water. And that's a mindful moment. You could be walking the dog, looking at the dog, looking at the nature, listening to the sounds, smelling the fresh air. That's a mindful moment as well, because for those moments, you're in that present moment. You're not in the past. You're not in the future. So meditation is a form of mindfulness. So it is an exercise or collection of techniques that you can use that will pull you again into that present moment, which sounds very Oprah, but in fairness, science tells us that it's very hard to be anxious, angry, or fearful if you're in that present moment. So to get back to golf, golf is absolutely, without a doubt, an exercise where aspects of mindfulness come into it. So now it depends on your approach, but one of the reasons why I think we love golf so much is that we accidentally enter into a mindful experience when we're out there. We may not be in it the whole time. We may be flinging our golf clubs over a wall out of frustration, and that's not particularly mindful unless you're appreciating the masonry as you're doing it. But, you know, the act of focusing on the ball, of connecting in with your body, of feeling the sensation of your body moving, of, you know, tracking a ball, to then walking down the fairway and going, you know, you'd often find yourself going, God, this is great, isn't it? Great to be out. You know, I'm glad I got out of bed at some stupid hour to drive here to see these messers, you know, and you can be getting that lovely smell of fresh cut grass. You're appreciating where you are. You're appreciating who you're with. And I find that happens naturally on a golf course. These are all moments of mindfulness where when you're thinking, oh, it's great to be here. This is great, isn't it? You're not in the past worrying about crap that happened. You're not in the future thinking about crap that might happen. You're in that present moment. So there are so many different times and reasons for being in that mindful space on a golf course. And I think that's why we feel so refreshed and uplifted when we come back. Now, obviously, you're getting fresh air in there. You're getting, you know, to spend time with people that you generally like. And plus, I suppose, even just getting back to the mindful aspect of it, I had a very interesting conversation at the last Pro-Am, the Irish Open that was played in Mount Juliet. And I was lucky enough to play with a chap called Marcus Armitage, who just a couple of weeks before off the tour, on the European tour, he'd won the Porsche European Open. So he was, you know, he was in a good space. Really, really interesting guy, very open to chatting about all aspects of the game. So we were talking about meditation. I'm always keen to know how any elite athlete handles the mental side of their game, and how you see some guys blow up and other guys cool as a cucumber, you know, and a lot of people in that space in between. So I was asking him, look, how do you do it? How do you handle your mental approach? So he was saying he uses the 10-yard rule, which may be something you've heard of before. So you're walking up to the ball, and he says, walking off the tee, he makes a definite, like, active attempt to, he wasn't aware he was being mindful or practicing mindfulness, but that's exactly what he was doing. So he says he tries to take in the scenery around him and really notice everything. So he'll look at the trees, he'll look at the faces of the spectators. He'll be, you know, trying to take in as much of the scenery around him as possible and just focus on that, try and appreciate where he is. And then when he gets within 10 yards of the ball, now he's got his game face on. He's thinking, okay, now he's thinking of the wind, where he is, you know, how the yardage, all that lovely nitty gritty that goes with hitting the golf ball. Hits it, and then he'll think about the shot for the 10 yards as he's walking away from the ball. And once he's past that 10 yards, he's back into looking around him, you know, maybe having a chat with whoever he happens to be with, taking in the scenery, and really trying to focus on the present moment, where he is. And I thought that was really interesting, because he had he wasn't aware that it was mindfulness in action, basically. He just thought he was distracting himself away from potentially harmful or intrusive thoughts getting in the way of him hitting the best possible shot when he eventually reached the ball. But actually that's mindfulness. It's anything, if staring at the leaves on a tree, or appreciating where you happen to be, or listening to the birds, or listening to the spectators, whatever it happens to be, they're all things that will pull you into that present moment. So I thought that was really interesting. So in a very, very roundabout way, to answer your question, I'm not sure if golf is particularly meditation, but it certainly is mindfulness. And there's lots of different aspects there. And meditation is a technique that you can use on a golf course to make you even more mindful and present when you do have to, hit that putt in the captain's prize for 3 points, where your knees are knocking together. And you're thinking, I could never turn professional if I can't even handle the captain's prize.
Do you have any tips for golfers then to become more present? So if I'm going out with Dave and I'm 2 down with 2 to go, and I'm definitely not in my present moment, what advice, or is there any kind of short meditations that you would recommend to golfers that they could do either whilst walking off the tee or walking towards a green or anything?
Well, firstly, you could employ the Marcus Armitage approach, the 10-yard rule. I mean, that's going to help you. So trying to just focus your mind on what's around you. But, you could be playing in even a club match play. And as frivolous as that sounds, it can be a nerve-wracking experience, and you can feel your heart starting to race, and you're thinking, oh God, as you go over a putt, you can have like out of body experiences where you're thinking, like, I don't know what's happening to me. Any technique we can employ in a golf course should be one that can just turn off your stress response. And that's most of meditation training in a sort of a day-to-day. We're taking out sort of the transcendental and spiritual side of it. But the nuts and bolts of the techniques I would be teaching is to flick that switch that would just knock off our stress response long enough for the rest of our brain to come back online, which means we'll be more present, making better decisions, and have all the parts of our brain working that can actually sink a 12-foot putt to win. So a lot of that is just breath-based. Breath is probably the most common technique you can use on a golf course. So say you're about to hit a putt for 3 or 4 points. There's one that I do called the one breath wonder. And, obviously you can't just sit down in the lotus position on the green and go, lads, be with you in a minute, all right? While the 4 ball behind you is like storming up and down the fairway. But so obviously we don't have time to really remove ourselves from the situation and, get calm and still. But what we can do is just go, okay, well, as I'm lining up this putt, I'm going to do a one breath wonder. And what that is I'm going to focus. I'm going to take a deep breath in through my nose, like you'd see Johnny Sexton or, Ronan O'Gara back in the day. Any place kicker, you'll see them do a big just before they hit it. And there's a reason why they do that. It's because when you breathe in through your nose, you get this lovely blast of oxygen, and it's a cue to your nervous system that it's okay to relax. So while you're lining up a putt, you just take a big deep breath in through your nose, and then you let that breath out a little bit slower than you normally would, and you just bring your attention to the sound of the breath leaving, the feeling of the breath passing through your nostrils or your nose, the sensation of your chest or your belly dropping back down again. And you could do 2 or 3 of those one breath wonders. And what we're doing in that moment is exactly what Marcus Armitage was doing by looking at the trees. You're bringing your focus into the length of just one out breath. That's it. And while you're in that, you're now not thinking about, oh my God, this putt's what happens if I miss this? And if I miss the one back, I'm gonna, oh God, what happens if I just get 1 point here and my card's wrecked? And that's what leads to you scratching the hole and, 5 putting because you're all over the shop. So when we focus even on the length of one out breath, we've now shut off those future thoughts about messing up the putt. And you've shut off the thoughts about what happened on the last green when you messed up that putt. At least for the length of a breath, you're in the present moment. And that's long enough for your brain to come back online, for your stress cortisol levels to drop back down, your heart rate to drop down, your blood pressure to drop down a little bit. So if you can fit in a couple of those one breath wonders in and around the green, nobody has to know, you'll be bulletproof. You'll be high-fiving yourself walking off the green.
Winning everything.
Yeah, I actually have employed. I was in one of those stressy corporate places that you came to speak to, and it was it was around a Lust for Life actually eventing. You may remember it was a 4-4-4 rule that you had for breathing.
Oh yeah, that was the 16 second. It was actually
This-
4-4-4-4.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I forgot the last one. That's why I was completely out of breath. You see, so I just kept on blowing. I don't,
Yeah.
but it does actually. It really does. It was 16 seconds of a breath in. I was just out to here afterwards. But no, it does actually really work. It's a massive. Because we spoke to Robbie Cannon about this as well, and he was talking about like tension in general for people playing golf at a high level, that they completely forget to breathe, and then it goes to things: do you breathe out or in when you strike a golf ball? And that just confuses people completely and just wrecks their head. But yeah, that breathing piece, or just even thing, is far so underrated as just a little tiny little something to do.
Yeah, and like I was saying, if you look at any athlete, the breathing, even if you look at someone with a pole vaulter, they're standing there ready to run. First thing they do, that's a little reset, and when we're under pressure, suddenly our breathing tends to change, and it's imperceptible. So you'll go from breathing kind of nice and deeply, generally using your diaphragm, down towards your belly. And as soon as stress starts to mount, we start to breathe more rapid, and our breathing becomes more shallow. And we tend to breathe into the top half of our lungs. So immediately we're at an oxygen deficit there, because we're not pulling it down into the base of our lungs, to those receptors that can get it into our bloodstream. So, and when you start to breathe shallowly, that's a little trigger to your nervous system, your little brain in there is like, oh, this is rapid, shallow breathing. This means, we're on full alert here. This is a high threat environment. So everything else starts to kick in. Then your heart's going to start to race. You'll perspire a bit more, and that stress response all starts to begin. So anything we can do just to reverse that, and that could be as simple as a big deep breath. You could do that 16 seconds. Obviously, if you're standing over a putt, it'll just annoy your playing partners. But say, you have a bit of a walk from the green to the tee box. You can do it while you're walking there. Even if it's a 4-ball and you're hitting fourth, you can easily fit in basically you're breathing into a count of 4. You hold it in your belly for a count of 4. You let the breath go for a count of 4. And then before you inhale again, you count to 4. So you can do that while on the tee box if you've got a bit of time. And this, it sounds a bit kooky. Oh yeah, I'm really going to do that. But if it's the difference between you getting, staying nice and loose, and getting 3 points as opposed to 1, then, it's worth it, And if we are breathing into that top half of our lungs, what happens when we do that? Immediately our neck and our shoulders start to stiffen, because that's where all the tension is then. We're breathing in there. And, stiff neck, stiff shoulders, you're not going to swing the ball properly. We know we play our best golf. Like, I know the best golf I can ever play is if when you go out by yourself on a sunny evening and the course is deserted and you're just strolling along, probably maybe hitting 2 balls, and you'll find you will never hit the ball better. And you'll come back in and you'll be like, man, I'm hitting the ball so well, because you're so relaxed. The pressure's off. It's not a competition. You don't have to talk to anybody. And what happens, we start to loosen up. You'll probably find that you're more mindful because you're there by yourself and you're enjoying the evening and the sunshine. Basically, you're doing all these wonderful things to unlock your stress system, your stress response, unlock your brain. And then in turn, your body's nice and loose. Then you hit the ball well. So anything that can turn off that stress response and relax and loosen the body and mind, it's got to help you.
You're wearing a whoop strap. Where does that fit in with this? I just noticed, actually, it was kind of, because we were talking about it. It seems like every fellow has hit a golf ball in the past 18 months has ended up getting a whoop strap.
Well, I'd like to personally thank my regular playing partner, Mike Nagel, who did the classic thing of, I'm playing golf with him, and he goes, I look at his wrist, I'm like, what's that? And so the conversation continued, and next thing I know, I'm using his promo code to get him more whoop time, and one arrives in the post, and that seems to be the way it works these days.
Yes, no one knows what it does. Apparently it has an app. I'm just not sure. And all the golfers wear it. So that's the only reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was designed with elite athletes in mind, and you can track your recovery and, so that you're primed for peak performance, at an optimum level. Most people just use it to see just how shit their system is if they've been on the piss.
On the piss. Can I get to zero? It's like the closer I've been to zero was the more points I've had.
Oh my God, 2% recovery. I'm going to die. It's just, if you ever want to find out how damaging alcohol is to your nervous system and your general body's recovery, get a Whoop. It's got it in so many different colored graphs. It's incredible. You are primed for recovery.
Speaking of consuming copious amounts of alcohol over the Christmas period, would you get out to play much golf and avoid a few of the afternoon Christmas festive drinks?
I mean, I kind of dip in and out of alcohol. I don't tend to drink a huge amount. So particularly around Christmas, I love having a clear head over Christmas. I love being just really as present as I can be with the kids, and enjoying the whole Santi experience. And I love the whole week of, it's probably the only week in the year really where it's perfectly acceptable to ignore your phone and lie down. I mean, generally as humans, we're terrible at resting because the pressure is just to strive, go, get, and resting is almost seen as sort of, chickening out or weak in some places. So I love that Christmas week where you can really just rest and veg and go for a walk and hit a few golf balls. And I don't think it'll be particularly boozy for me. No. But I'm already down on the timesheet. Excuse me, the timesheet in Hoth for the 28th. There's I don't know, Christmas cracker or some kind of Yuletide pun name to whatever the competition is. So it's some kind of 4-ball event. So I'll be definitely looking forward. Like, the weather is crazy at the moment. Like, you'd be days you're still playing in t-shirts. Like, it's mad. So if I can get out there, I will.
Yeah, we were playing Royal Dublin yesterday. There's a group behind us, and one of the guys was in a t-shirt. And I don't know. I don't think it was necessarily that mild yesterday, but he was committed to the cause. Woolly hat, t-shirt,
Yeah, well, I see you guys get all the cool golf gear, and my wife she just doesn't get the golf thing, and she's really happy for me. She loves that I enjoy it, and she loves the version of me that comes back after golf because I'm generally in great form. But I remember on our first date, I opened the boot of my car to get a bottle of champagne out of it because we were going for a little picnic, and she saw there was golf clubs in there and was like physically recoiled in horror. Like, if I'd had a dead body in there, it would have been less of a reaction. She just did not want to know about the whole golf thing. And she was talking to her mother that night saying, "Oh, I met this really nice guy, but I don't think it's going to work out. He plays golf." And she's like, "Oh, well, he can't. Maybe the next one." I don't think I'll ever get her to play golf, but one of her main issues with it is the clothes, is the nerdy golf clothes that traditionally would have been worn. But I think the golf gear these days is getting, like, if you can have golf gear that you can wear outside of golf, it's good gear. That it's not necessarily just the sweatshirt you're wearing there.
Yeah.
Like, it's technically golf gear.
I was just about to say, we should really put you in touch with our friends over at Duck Hook. They, we wear their stuff all the time.
Yeah, but like, you don't understand the importance of it. If it could save a marriage, if you're walking around in naff golf gear, that could break a relationship apart. They're horrified as I come through the front door in the great mood, wearing horrible golf gear that you wouldn't be seen dead in down the. Because you ever notice, like if you're wearing your golf gear in the golf course, you feel great, and then you happen to have to stop at a petrol station on the N7, and you walk in. Suddenly you realize, oh my God, I'm dressed like an asshole.
What are we talking here? Are we talking like Ian Poulter level of golf clothing, or a little bit more conservative?
I think those, like, the sleeveless jumpers.
Yeah.
Anything that's fully sleeveless on has to be questioned outside of a golf course. Those do you remember they brought out those? They're so much better now, but they're essentially jumpers, but they were lined on the inside with waterproof
with waterproof stuff.
Yeah,
they're like crinkled as you move.
Yeah, exactly.
my dad was wearing one of them the other day. It's like he's wearing a bin bag inside his jumper.
Yeah, exactly. But plus, they weigh about 50 kilos, and if they get wet, like you'd be on your hands and knees trying to get down the fairway. That bloody thing is so heavy. And of course you put it on, and within like 18 seconds you've like BO. Even if you've just had the shower, you put it on, BO. They just, oh man, they were, they're heavy going. And hey, look, I'm so free. I'm so benefiting from this. It looks like a jumper. It's something you can hear your dad explaining. No. It looks like a jumper, but actually it's like a raincoat. And wowing people at parties.
Wow. What is when you go playing golf, what's your favorite part of the day, the golf day?
Oh, wow. Great question.
You sparked something there earlier. For me, it's the 15 minutes after you sit down in the bar and you're about to order where everything is possible. Yeah. Like from there on. So that was mine. It just jumped into my head, so I said I'd ask you.
So it's after the round. That's yours. So
yeah, when you get up and you've and you're just about to have the chat or whatever, but it's the wait till your man from the bar comes over to take the order, and there's probably a pint and a sandwich or a soup or something. It's like just the best part of the day.
We're so easily pleased, and it has nothing to do with the game itself.
Neanderthals.
I think I actually love just before you tee off, if you've got there on time. Like I remember my dad would be always giving out, if we were, of course, he'd be up at the crack of dawn and we were probably down the pub in Lahinch or whatever the night before, and then you'd be getting up late, and he would hate going onto the rushing. I'm not rushing onto the first tee. Like I love getting to the golf course early if I can, having a putt, a look in the pro shop. Like I love that whole preamble to going out, and then standing on the first tee with it all ahead of you. If the weather's nice, and I think that sort of pre-game preamble I really like. If I'm organized enough to make it happen. How about you, Johnny?
I'd say it's stepping up onto the first tee, because I generally at the moment I'm trying to play with people I haven't seen for a while, just because with COVID I haven't seen a lot of friends, just people who live in different counties, and I think it's the idea of walking onto a tee and knowing that for the next 4 hours it's just going to be me and these 3 other people that I have chosen to spend a considerable amount of time with, who I am very close with and will more than likely be closer with by the end of that round.
Yeah, well said. How are you playing with, when you put yourself in a timesheet and you're playing with like just a couple of owl fellas and people
Love
you
it.
don't know? Yeah,
love it. Yeah, and I think there's some like where you get some of the best stories about the club. I think I'm looking for a club in Dublin at the moment, and that's the one thing I'll do for the first few months that I'm looking at playing is I'll just throw my name anywhere and be like, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? What's the crack here with this group? Who's the joker? Who takes it a bit more seriously than they should? And then like, let's get into the club politics. And who's the man about the club, who's the guy to know, who's the guy that'll get you tickets for this or that or the other. I love that. I think that's great fun because that's the soul of the club.
You're always looking for the angle.
Yeah, every move he makes, he's looking for something of it.
I'm a man in need of tickets for events. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, one of the hardest parts about being a comedian is that if you play golf with a bunch of guys you don't know and they know you're a comedian, they automatically expect you to be funny.
Yeah.
And I'm not very funny on a golf course. And people might argue that I'm not very funny out of a golf course. But I like to think about the golf. I'm not like super focused, but I'm there to golf, so I do like to focus on the golf and still have a bit of crack. But I don't want to be thinking about, okay, how am I going to entertain these guys? Walking down the fairway. Do I have any? I'm just not one of those people who has like 15 hilarious stories always to hand. I'm just not one of those people. So. I think, maybe sometimes people think that I'm a bit too serious on a golf course, but I do. I just love the golf part of it, and I actually love listening to other people on a golf course. I don't necessarily feel the need that I need to be speaking all the time.
Some of the funniest people I've ever heard are golfers. I think it's just a thing, in some of them, it's just an inherent ability to tell stories because they feel like they have a need to entertain.
Yeah, I know. And that's another one of the reasons why we love playing golf. It's particularly if you're playing with mates who you're just slagging each other. Like it starts the minute, you come into the golf club, one of them is sitting with their arse in the boot, putting on their golf shoes. And as soon as you open the car door, it started. And, again, that's another one of those moments that I love. That isn't necessarily the golf, but it's that sort of boot of the car banter that you have before you've even got near the tee box.
It's funny getting into a group with 3 older lads or women who are very familiar with themselves, but have no filter because you're there. It's like they don't hold back, and you just realize that they're some of the most vicious people known to man. So, like, if they treat their friends like this.
Yeah. And it's funny. I always think golf is a great indicator of your personality type. In particular, how you speak to yourself, how your inner dialogue is. I think a golf course is a natural amplifier for your own inner dialogue. So if you ever play with somebody and they're like, "Oh, God's sake, you idiot," they talk to themselves angrily in the third person the whole time. And it's really interesting to be around that. Because you start to get, oh my God, if they talk to themselves like that all the time, it must be so hard. It must be such an unwelcome place in your own head sometimes. Because if you're going, "You idiot, what the hell?" And it's usually people, and we can be so hard on ourselves on a golf course. Like, you might have played in 6 months, and you go out for a game, and within 3 holes, you're like, "You idiot, what are you doing?" Like, you haven't practiced. Like, you wouldn't just get up on a unicycle and because you couldn't do it, start go, "Oh my God, what kind of an idiot are you?" Because you've, slightly sliced the ball and you didn't hit the green. It's like all out war on yourself. So it's funny to hear people's, and it was one of the places that I noticed that when I started to meditate, and I started to do it regularly, I noticed I was different on a golf course. And that was really interesting because I realized that I had changed my inner dialogue. I changed how I was talking to myself. I was far more forgiving and patient, and my stress response wasn't kicking in straight away. So I wasn't overreacting and being overly emotional. And that's a really interesting thing to watch on a golf course. To see how someone else acts and how your own behavior can change on a golf course depending on how you're talking to yourself when you're not on it.
That's really interesting. It's there's a podcast from Nike that I listen to called Trained. It's hosted by their senior director of performance. So he trains like LeBron James, Roy McIlroy, and he's a big advocate for positive self-talk. And the kind of mantra that he has for that is, "So what? Now what?" So you top the drive. So what? You can't take that drive back. Now what? It's all about how you react and talk to yourself to get yourself up for hitting the next shot as positively as possible and being as in that next shot as possible. So yes, it's very interesting that you said that since you started doing the meditations, the same outcome.
Yeah, although my brother, who's prone to giving out to himself a bit on the golf course, accused me, it's like in Spain, going, "I know you wrote that about me, didn't you? That you wrote that in your book about me." I was like, I didn't. I absolutely did not. But if you keep doing this, then maybe I'll put you in the next one.
That's gas. Listen, Dermot, thank you so much. I think we might leave it on that with a nice note of being kind to yourself on the golf course.
Absolutely, yeah. If you can be kind to yourself on a golf course, you can be kind to yourself anywhere. That's for sure.
We must get a game in ourselves. Hopefully, once if it continues to be mild or in the new year, we'd love to host you somewhere.
I hope so, lads. I look forward to it. Let's try and put something in the calendar, and hope that COVID doesn't come and ruin it for us. But that's the great thing about golf courses. It's outside.
Outside.
Hooray!
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd love to.